Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast, where we explore your hidden thoughts and desires, revealing your greatest drop the mic moments. Now, here's your host, Art Costello.
Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast. Today, my guest is Dr. Aaron Smith. He's an expert with STEM and workplace readiness and is known around the world for his work. He assists schools, company leaders, and communities to work together to develop and sustain a pipeline of competent and job-ready employees. Aaron has developed a passion for workplace readiness and STEM, where he has shared his knowledge as an adjunct professor at Old Dominion University and Christopher Newport University. He and his work have been referenced over 30 times from places like KitKat to TechTeachThought.com, a best-selling author of Awakening Your STEM School and a future book coming in 2019, Blank Check, Recreating America's Broken Schools. Dr. Aaron L. Smith is now an expert consultant on leading communities, school districts, and individual schools to transform their educational systems to initiate growth and sustain the creation of a pipeline of workforce-ready graduates thanks to his 5-Point STEMS initiative. Aaron's purpose and passion for workplace readiness and STEM has been shared on local, state, and national levels. He's received the WHRO Technology Administrator Award and the Crystal Star Award from the National Dropout Prevention Center. Aaron has also been directly responsible for his former school receiving many workplace readiness-related honors, for becoming a prime school recognized by the Society of Manufacturing Engineers Education Foundation, to awarding over $3 million in grants in just over 4 years. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Hey, Art. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm great. Hey, can you fill us in on your history and how you created STEMS?
Sure. Okay. So having been in education for 21 years, I've learned a lot of great things, been around some really cool and insightful people, definitely much smarter than me. So after I written my first book, Awakening, I was sitting with a buddy of mine and we were talking and he goes, "What are you doing now?" I said, "I'm writing another STEM book." He says, "You're writing a cookbook." And I was like, "No." He says, "Why are you writing a cookbook? Anybody can do that. Challenge yourself. Do something really innovative." Great things happen with alcohol. So while we finished that conversation, it really derived and it said to the forefront, what does it take to build a perfect public school? So that's kind of the premise of the book, Blank Check. Really, when I was researching the last components of the book, it dawned on me, I said, I need to go back and check on workplace readiness a little bit more. I'm trying to research and I'm trying to make the book as realistic as possible, but yet enticing. I realized there's no systematic way for workplace readiness to really be implemented. They talk about it as individuals. They talk about the importance, the billions of dollars spent into it. So I really connected the dots. I kind of used my experiences as an administrator, my conversations with companies and industries, and I see the kids transitioning themselves from diplomas to dollars. And really that's how it came to life, is just 5 simple steps to make it work.
The need to have closure in any given situation is sheer human nature. And when it comes to romantic relationships, this desire skyrockets. Has your previously failed relationship left you in immense pain? It's not uncommon for people to shy away from a new relationship after their first one fails miserably. The fear of the unknown makes them hide in a shell to prevent any future heartbreak. Relatable? Despite wanting to love and be loved, you can't take the plunge if your mind and heart are still locked somewhere in the past. Maybe you aren't aware of the power of releasing the past, or perhaps you don't know how to do it. Art Costello in his online course teaches the art of moving on from bad places to happier, more stable ones. This course can change your life for good, helping you beat all kinds of negativity on the road to eternal bliss. Sign up now before the gloominess gets the better of you at expectationacademy.com.
One of the things that really just resonated with me is that it started at an epiphany and an expectation that you could change the world. You could change the education system.
Well, I think we can. And it's more or less, we live in a society, unfortunately, where everybody focuses on the negativity. Everybody says it's your fault and this is wrong and that's wrong. And I'm sure you feel the same way. I'm tired of people complaining about stuff. Just roll up your sleeves, stop making excuses and do it. And even if it's just my small circle that I can be an influence with, you think about how many people's lives you can touch along the way. And that's where I am. And hopefully that ripple will get larger and larger.
Yeah. And it goes back to the thing that I say all the time. People talk a lot and very few people take action. And it's about taking action. Can you explain STEM, what it stands for?
Sure. Okay. So STEMS basically is an acronym for 5 basic steps of the workplace readiness. Okay. Number 1 is you have to see the vision. And I explain this because when you talk about people from industry, you talk about people from the community, you talk about the governments, the local governments, and the schools, their definitions of workplace readiness is different. So you have to have some common language and you have to develop a common mission. So once you do that, then you take inventory. You see what's at each location and what are things you want to bring in that's going to help catalyze that process of evolution. And the third part is you're engaging the stakeholders. And when I say engaging the stakeholders, this is where you're really trying to put the rubber to the road. And you're really trying to put an actionable plan, a realistic plan, tying everybody in one more time. Then the fourth thing is the make action plan. And this is where you start to derive funding. You start to come up with ideas and really transform the theory or the dream into reality. So after you've developed that blueprint and you fine tune it, the last part is the S, where you start up career and technical education, and you also put STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, into the schools and the lessons and even in the workplace so that the skill sets that are developed can be maintained throughout an employee's career.
I mean, that makes perfect sense when you really think about it. And for employers, I mean, I could see where they would really get behind this because as we all know, there's a shortage of really qualified help.
Absolutely.
For business in this country. And that starts with our education system, that it's failing to properly educate students to become employable employees. I mean, they're not filling the bill.
I think they're doing what they can do. And I say that because you've got limitations that each school district faces. Number 1 is you have the funding. You've got teachers who are been tasked to do so many more things outside of their scope because we're trying to think of every which way to save the child. And I applaud the idea, but teachers need that opportunity to develop relationships, to really dive into meaningful professional development that changes the worksheets to labs, to virtual reality assignments and things like that. Then you also need to make sure that you create the industry into the classroom. And by that, they should be really co-teaching with the teachers. That's really where you're going to hook the kids. Because the other half of the battle is not only are you struggling with people getting into the program, and I'm talking about the workplace program, you also want to make sure you hook the kids along the way. Because that's the secret to a true educator, is getting students to develop and thirst for their own knowledge. And when you do that, it really becomes a whole different transformation.
Let me ask you something. For the last, I'd say 30 years, there's been this push in this country that if you don't have a college degree or an advanced degree even now, then and somehow you're looked down upon as less than full and complete. Mm-hmm. We are running into a shortage of skilled laborers that are capable of making great incomes and all that.
Absolutely.
And we see college students that get master's degrees that are standing behind flipping burgers, local burger joint. How did we get there? Do you have any feelings on that?
I do. And 30 years ago, there was more of information type of things where a 4-year degree really covered a lot of aspects. And thanks to technology and thanks to different teachings in community colleges and technical schools, they've shortened that up to 2 years. And see, the stigmatism is, oh, if you get a 2-year degree, you're not as smart as somebody with a 4-year degree. Well, you've hit the nail on the head. There are people with 2-year degrees that are making just as much money as somebody with a 4-year degree or even higher. And the truth is, for every one person, let's just say a doctor, you really should have 7 support people who are technicians, nurses, the support teams behind the doctor to really make sure that happens. And that's where we're seeing the demand take place. And like you said earlier, it's not because there's not enough people applying for jobs. There's not enough qualified people applying for jobs. And again, it goes back to that society. We have to make our children aware, we have to make our families aware that a 2-year degree can be just as advantageous as a 4-year degree.
Yeah, I mean, I know people because of what I do. I meet a lot of people, and I know probably 10 that have no college degrees that are making high 6-figure and some 7-figure income.
Yes.
I mean, just because they learned one technical, I don't want to say, I guess it is technical. They learned one skill and really took it to the limits and created. And it's about becoming, I think, creative and becoming a doer.
It is. It really is. If you look, the technical schools where you get in those little specialty degrees, they kind of wrap it in what's called an industry certification. And if you notice, companies like Google now are starting to go away with 4-year degrees. If you have the expertise and you have the certifications, they'll hire you because you're just as qualified as maybe somebody with that degree. So I'm glad to see more and more companies are starting to do this, because you're right. You're going to limit some people because they may not have money. But more importantly, I think you're beginning to think beyond what a traditional role used to be that used to be there for decades.
Yeah. No, one of the things that comes to mind with me, I have several friends and family members who own either businesses or in upper management with them. And the biggest problem they have is even getting their employees to show up. I mean, just the skill set is just not their passion for being an employee is just not there. I mean, there's one that comes to mind is he hired somebody and they automatically start saying to him, well, I don't want to do what I'm hired to do. I'm better than that. I want to be in this position. Yep. Well, that's not what you were hired for.
Yep.
How does the STEM system address any of the psychological and emotional issues of employment? Does it address that?
It does. And this is where I talk about bringing everybody on board. Every school should have career days. And I'm not talking about just your one time where your mom or dad comes in and talks about their job. I'm talking about sustaining it throughout the course of a year, where they get to build relationships with the kids. They actually get to go in the fire truck. They actually get to see a drone in action and really develop relationships with these kids so that they feel comfortable and they're excited when they come. And that's what I was alluding to earlier, is that if we can hook the kids into these careers now, that becomes so much easier when they become adults, because then they get to realize that, all right, with the good comes the bad. There's 3 skill sets I really believe that we all need to focus on. Number 1 is the hard skills. Number 2 is the soft skills, which is exactly that within itself. And then the third thing is the education experiences. You have to make sure that kids are getting all 3 sets along the way and even into college before they even apply. They need to know what's the good part of the jobs. They need to know what's the bad part of the jobs. It's almost like you have to identify the profile of the job itself and really matching it up with their interest.
Yeah, I think in our school district, I know I've been out of my kids are older now. They never even addressed anything about, our school district was really focused on preparing them for college. And of course, Texas has what we call the STAR test. So now teachers teach to the STARS test and very little else. And they don't learn any life skills. They don't learn about jobs. They don't learn about those things. Here, the thing is preparing you for college. Do you find that around the country? Is that pretty much it?
Depends on the location. And going back to blank check, what I believed in, the graduates should go in 3 places. One is a college that should be 2 or 4 year, depending on their interest. The second thing is like the military. To me, that is just as important to keep our defense strong. The third thing is like a trade school where they're going straight to work, and that could be like an apprentice school. I think it's going to depend on the location. I think it's going to depend on the needs of the industry, because like our city, for example, has a shipyard where they make the aircraft carriers for the United States. So they have students who go straight into the apprentice school. And half day, they're in the classrooms. The other half day, they're on the ship. They're welding, they're electrical, they're sheet metal, HVAC, all that stuff. That in itself really should depend on what the location is. I think it's schools' jobs to provide options, but I think it's the family's input that really is the ultimate device in making sure kids make the right decisions.
Has anyone ever inspired you to discover a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled you? It is a magical experience, isn't it? Inspiration is indeed very powerful, yet it's often undermined. It can lift you from the ground to the sky in no time. Have you ever thought about returning the favor by inspiring the people around you? If you don't think you have it in you, we have good news for you. Art Costello's online course has everything you need to learn to supercharge yourself and shape your character into a powerful personality. Get ready to discover your strengths and unleash the creativity within. Don't believe it? Check it out yourself by signing up for this life-changing course at expectationacademy.com. That's expectationacademy.com.
1965, I was graduating, and I was hell-bent on going into the military because I knew that that was my road out of my environment, because my childhood was not great. So I went down. The recruiters came to the schools and were trying to recruit all the guys, Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, everybody. The Air Force guy got a hold of me and told me to come down to the recruiting office and do some testing and everything. So I was tested, and the Air Force offered me, there was a little unknown industry called computers technology. The Air Force offered me training. I would enlist.
Yeah.
I was walking out of the Air Force office, and across the road across the room, the hallway, was the Marine recruiter. The Marine recruiter knew my brother. So he walked out and he said, "Costello, what are you doing over there?" And I said, "Well, I just signed up in the Air Force." He said, "Really?" He said, "Man, I thought you were a tough guy. I thought you could really do." And he laid the old Marine Corps thing on me. I turned around and went, got out of the Air Force, guaranteed computers, went into the Marine Corps and became an infantryman. If I only knew what computers can. Think about it. Almost 50 years ago, being in the very end of getting military training in computers. How many of those people went on after their enlistments in the service, went to college and got computer degrees, even 2-year degrees, where they went and what they created?
Yep.
It's all about the choices we make. And I don't have any regrets about it. I'm proud to have served my country. I'm proud to have been a Marine, and it'll always stick with me. And I'm proud of the things that I did in Vietnam, and I don't have any problems about that. But it really does reflect back on how little choices we make can make such a big difference in our lives.
It does. My daddy used to tell me, pay attention to the details. The more I hear those words echo in my ears, the more I understand what he says, because the little details can unravel into big issues. And it's so important to be as perfect as possible so that what you're doing has an effect on the person next to you. I totally agree.
Which leads me, you just really, I didn't come up with an epiphany, but I came up with a thought and expectation that hit me. When you said, my daddy taught me, learn about the details, that is something I did not have. I did not have anyone setting expectations for me. I did not have anyone giving me direction and telling me this is what you ought to be doing. Matter of fact, I had none of that. And that would have made a huge difference in my life. And that what makes differences in how people are educated.
Yes.
How their schooling goes, going on to get advanced degrees like you did and get your doctorate. And all of those things, our parents are such integral parts of our development and how they set the expectations for your performance and what you do. Even though we as children quite often fight everything that our parents want us to do, they truly do have what's in our best interest at heart. Even more so, it sets up in our system, in our brain, how to deal with expectation and how to deal with success and how to deal with failure. All of those things come into it.
They do.
Without parents to guide you, or it doesn't even have to be parents. It just can be supportive people around you. It really makes a difference in the way that your life goes. And I've often thought it about myself. I wonder what I could have been if I had had the proper direction.
And knowing you in just a few short months, you echo what I think a lot of successful people have. It's just through trial and error. But what separates you is you have determination. In the education world, we call that grit. It's not always the most talented people that succeed. It's the most determined people that succeed. And I agree with you. Having somebody there can make a huge difference along the way. And we say as educators, kids don't care about what you know until they know that you care, because you don't know what the story's on.
I love that saying. I've never heard that before.
You've never heard that before?
Could you repeat it?
Sure. Kids don't care about what you know until they know that you care.
Powerful. I think that's powerful. I had never heard that before.
In the education world, it's kind of a common understanding because we don't know the stories behind the kids when they come into our classroom. If we can just unravel that layer a little bit and really find out the true being that's there, you're going to see a set of eyes looking up at you and a clean slate. And that really begins that impression. I can't fault parents because in some ways I cannot fault parents because some of them are working 2 and 3 jobs and they can't be there, not because they don't want to be there, but they have to choose. Then you have some that are deployed. So of course, maybe the grandparents are taking over, and there's circumstances where you understand why they're hurting a little bit. And then you have the other circumstances where it's unfortunate to children. Those are the ones we really have to embrace more, because to me, those are the ones that I think are more resilient. I still remember some of the things that I hear from kids. Then they tell me what's going on in their lives. I'm like, wow, how did you get here? What makes you so determined? And they come in with a smile on their face. They come in perky. They're coming in ready. They're ready to see their lives change.
Are you familiar with Angela Duckworth's work on grit?
Oh, yes.
To my audience, if you really want to read some great work and research on grit, Angela Duckworth, I think she's at Penn State.
Stanford, I believe.
Oh, she's at Stanford now?
Yep.
I think it was Penn State when I know. Incredible work she's done, and it's really great. It'll really be helpful to the audience to read that. But grit is really what gets people through the hard times.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people with natural talent try to shift down thinking they can coast. And then the people with the grit, when you put a little fire under them, they're the ones that are going to turn it into overdrive. Those are the ones that you see giving 120% every day. You look at the pro sport like the NFL. How many first round people that have gone bust just because they were this, that, and the whole 9 yards, but they didn't have the work ethic? I won't mention Johnny Manziel or anybody like that. But if you look at a Tom Brady, who was projected to be a backup, they called him a blue chip player. But if you look at it, his grit made him into the football player that he is. He wanted to be the best.
Yeah. And I think also what makes Tom Brady so great, not to get off on football, but what makes him so great is his ability and his teachability.
Yes.
Just practice. And his longevity is his caring for his body. I mean, I just saw his regimen, his eating regimen, his physical workouts and everything. It's incredible to be 40 years old and in the shape he is, and considering the pounding he's taken.
Oh, yes.
It's just really incredible. Can you tell us some more about your new book coming out, Blank Check?
Absolutely. What I wanted to do was kind of mirror a chapter book of Andy Weir's The Martian. I'm sure you're familiar with that book. I mean, such a great read and an awesome movie. But the way he started his book, I'm not sure if you knew about this. He started off as a chapter book where people got input on it and the revisions would change it and get developed from there. So when I was creating Blank Check, it starts off as a principal who literally quits his job because he's so frustrated with the system. And he's kind of finding his way again. And his best friend, who's a benefactor, basically allows him to rewrite a school district in the islands, giving him a blank check. He says, go in there and do what cannot be done in today's schools. And together, by working with the community, working with the schools, and creating ownership and pride, they have transformed that island into a thriving culture of opportunity.
Wow. How does it go?
How does it go?
Yeah.
Well, it starts off, obviously the first chapter is a very tense moment where the principal's having an engaging conversation with his executive director. And they're not seeing eye to eye because what he's seeing is totally not what the director's seeing. And he's a retired military veteran, highly decorated. And he's like, I can't do this. If I can't make the class successful, make the school successful, why am I going to get frustrated and do it? So he just up and quits. During this time, He's trying to re-identify himself. And his best friend knows how much he loves education. He finally coaxes him after going down to a Caribbean island. And I'll tell you about the Caribbean island in a second, where he shows them poverty. He shows them gangs. He shows them the poor structures within the neighborhoods. And they are craving and desiring for change, but nobody is able to give them that opportunity until he comes down there and helps the school system become believers. But the way he does that is he doesn't just go shows them how to do it. He rolls up his sleeves and he works together and develops a plan. And this plan actually is broken down into the community, basically the expectations for the parents, the expectations for the children, the expectations for the schools. And it's a live document that creates a new level of ownership. That was the reason for specifically selecting an island, because this island is a microcosm of what you would see in urban America. You're going to have poverty. You're going to have gangs. You're going to have murders, all kinds of unfortunate things. But if you can isolate some of those extraneous variables, then you can replicate this in a larger scale. And that's the dream, is to show people, what do you do when you eliminate barriers and you create opportunities? And the money is not the issue. Sometimes policies are not the issue, and you really engage in conversations and just go back and look at education holistically. That's when you find out the secret to life. That's the secret to a prosperous community, is putting your investment in the future, which is your children. And it begins in the education.
Yes, it does. I mean, it's the foundation of our whole existence. If you go back and look at man from the beginning,
yeah,
their expectations are what have driven them. And that's what has made us perform. I mean, we invented the wheel, the bow and arrow. I mean, all these different things that have come out of the creative mind of man are because they expect, and how they expect to do it has always driven us. And that is why our expectations are the most important tool that we have to not only change ourselves, but to change our world. And we have been so focused on, it's been ingrained in us that our expectations don't matter, when it really, what doesn't matter is the expectations of others that don't matter. Because when other people start expecting of you, we have this tendency to fight it. But what's most important is what our core expectations are and inside of us, and how we view them and how we move forward with them. And part of Shower Epiphanies podcast is about encouraging people to listen to their epiphanies, because epiphanies are the precursor to our expectations. And once we open to them, people have them in all kinds of different places.
Oh, yeah.
But if we just shut them out, most people just shut their, whether you call them epiphanies or thoughts or whatever you want to call them, when you shut them out and don't do anything about them, there's no progress. But when you start living them and start expecting to be able to achieve them and start creating and start thinking outside of the norm in the box, and it does amazing things in your life. It's what's driven me all my life. I'm not afraid to try stuff because I know I'm going to be okay. I know that it's always going to work out. But really what drives me is my eagerness to learn. I love learning new ideas and physics. I've done all kinds of things because I just want to go learn them. Doesn't matter about a degree or anything. I just want to know how things work and what makes them happen. That is the one thing that I have learned in my entire life. How we expect and honoring those expectations and those thoughts that we have is so critical to us living a happy life and living a fruitful life and helping others.
That's what I was getting ready to share with you. You're hitting the nail on the head. Our true existence is to serve others and to help others along the way. And through that journey, we're given opportunities for growth. We're given opportunities to bring others alongside too. And one of my key philosophies is we are only bound by our own imagination. We can be our biggest advocate, but we can be our biggest foe at the same time. It depends on how you wake up in the morning and also how you decide to tackle an issue. Those epiphanies that you're talking about, they're there for a reason. And they're put right at the right moment in time because it really should make you reflect on the next steps that you need to focus on in life.
Don't know which direction you want your life to take? Are you sinking deep down into the pit of uncertainties day by day? So, what's the secret to leading a happy, satisfied life? It's taking matters into your own hands. But what if the matters in question are a total blur? Art Costello's Expectation Academy course aims to tell you exactly how you can get some clarity in your life. This course can be your savior on your journey to reinventing yourself. While you certainly can't plan your whole future ahead, you can definitely control twists and turns your life takes. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for this course now at expectationacademy.com. Get a chance to broaden your horizons and add meaning to your life. That's expectationacademy.com.
Well, we're getting pretty close to our time, and I want to give you some time to be able to tell the audience what you've got coming up, what important things are going on, and also let us know that how to make this world better through the education system.
First of all, thank you again for having me today. I mean, it's always fun talking with you, and I hope we're going to continue to do this for years on end. I think number one is don't just sit on the sidelines. We need to become active stakeholders in this process. And parents think that they can't do anything, and I remind them, you are just as important as the superintendent when it comes to our children's lives. You make a difference in somebody's life, whether it's your child or whether it's somebody else's. So don't think that what you do is minimal. And the more people can change their mindsets to say, I can't to I can or I will, that's going to be the game changer. And getting involved can be anything from just helping out at a PTA or helping your kids really study and helping them develop a whole different appreciation for something like the arts. That's the first thing I would say. And I would say is when people are at a point where they want to have conversations about taking education to the next level, contact me. That's what I'm here for, is to help others along the way. And I really want my dream to be everybody else's dream. And I feel like this is my epiphany, my life. And this is why I'm here sharing my story with you, because I want this to become a positive move. I want this to become inspirational so that everybody can celebrate.
How can people get a hold of you, and where can they get a hold of you?
All right. Well, there's two ways. One is the good old-fashioned email, which is Aaron, AARON, @wr.solutions. And then my website is wr.solutions. And they can go and see more information about me, and love to hear from your audience and be more happy to help you in any way possible.
Any parting words for us?
Just don't hesitate in life. Utilize that epiphany that's there. Seize the moment, but really think about what can happen beyond that epiphany and share it with somebody else along the way. It'll be a journey that you'll never forget.
Aaron, thank you for being on the show. It's always a pleasure. And yes, we will always be in contact. We're bonded. And
yes.
To the audience, get a hold of Dr. Smith if you need any assistance in your community. He's there to help you. He'll do what he can. You've got in the show notes will be the ways that you can get a hold of him, his email address and his website. Thank you again, Aaron, for being on the show. Really, really enjoyed it. We're going to have to do it again.
We will.
And to the audience, thank you for listening again. We will always be in touch. I love and care about you all. And Heather White, take it away.
Thanks for listening to the show. Drop us your comments and questions with what you want answered on the show. You can subscribe on iTunes and Binge Network. You can also get more information on the website, expectationtherapy.com.